welcome to the Build and Exit podcast. I'm Julie Wilkinson and I'm the owner and founder of Wilkinson Accounting Solutions. We are an accounting and consultancy firm that specialise in business acquisition, so we help people buy businesses, and exit strategy plan. I'm really hoping you're enjoying the episodes, and today I am bringing you Francis West, who is the owner and founder of Security Everywhere. We're primarily going to be talking about cyber security today, which is quite interesting because it's one of the things that not many people talk about because, like Francis always says, it's quite invisible unless it impacts you. But there's going to be some great stories, and it's really shocking to think that Francis' biggest issue he's seen is 1.4 million of cash lost because of cybersecurity. So I think you're going to want to tune in to see what you need to think about in business, but then as an owner and acquisition, like what you should be looking for in due diligence. So firstly, Francis, I want to thank you for coming on the show.
No, thank you, Julia. It's so nice to be invited to these podcasts. I did a count the other day. I've done over 200 of these since. Wow. Or presentations on cybersecurity since the beginning of COVID. Wow. And we'll talk about our mission later. But I'm very grateful for the opportunity to help hopefully many more people that listen to this podcast after it goes out today.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, I just want to hand over to you. Maybe you can just give a bit of a background about why you're so passionate about cyber and what you're helping people with.
Yeah, Julie. So I've been in the IT support game for over 33 years now. I work with my business partner. He's done 34 years. He's got 1 year on me. And we've always done security. But I would say probably about 3 or 4 years ago, the only thing way I can describe it is what we saw was a tsunami of cyber attacks, especially on smaller businesses. And only 2 weeks ago, I was in London at the Future of Cybersecurity event in London. And the guys were saying that, a lot of companies out there today, when it comes to cybersecurity, they expect the flu jab to fix COVID, and it doesn't work anymore. So what I'm trying to say is old technology, all the well-known systems that we grew up with, sadly, it's just not man enough anymore to protect businesses. And I would say probably 95% of businesses that we meet are not even 5% adequately protected. Why? Because they're still using old technology to fix a new problem. So what we decided to do 3 or 4 years ago was to go out to the market, and we looked at, we're not all of them, but there are 12,500 security solutions out there for businesses. How do you even know where to pick? So unless you eat, sleep and breathe and dream about this every day, you don't even know where to start. So we then found, or with a lot of research and a lot of effort and a lot of blood, sweat and tears, we found the 5 top solutions or security services on the planet. And we've now we've enabled the smallest businesses, when they've got 1 user, 5 users, 10 users, 100 users, to have the same level of protection as NASDAQ and Netflix and TGI Fridays, because why should they not have the same level of protection? So we made it our mission to educate and protect at least 1 million businesses from hackers and scammers by 2026. So we're on a mission, and we're helping as many people as possible.
Wow, yeah, sounds good. And obviously I put a mission after this that I probably need to get myself checked out or the company checked out. So I'll be doing that after this.
I think you should.
I think I definitely should.
You owe it to your clients.
I do, yeah. We all do. We all have a duty of care, don't we? So
we do.
So we talked about the biggest case you've ever seen. You mentioned you saw a 1.4 million loss. So I think that's obviously a big number, and people were thinking, oh my God, I don't want to lose 1.4 mil. So just talk us through what happened?
Yeah, so one thing I didn't mention during the introduction is for my sins, I now serve on 6 cybersecurity panels, including the Home Office, and work with the Cyber Resilience Centres. There are 9 in the UK, also a founding member of the Eastern Fraud Forum. Also work very closely with a number of the UK cyber police teams, as in cyber police. And sometimes they even place young offenders with us so that we can help rehabilitate them. But this is a case that was actually referred by the Eastern Cyber Resilience Centre. And it's a local business in Hertfordshire, a building firm. And the hackers were on their systems for at least 6 months. And on that note, I don't know if you know this, but The average in the UK now is 237 days, where somebody or the hackers are sitting on your system completely undetected, and they're gathering information about you or about your clients or about your suppliers with the view of then launching an attack. And you should ask me a question about charities later, and I'll explain why. But what happened there was, so they managed to get onto the main accounts people's PCs, and they then started monitoring when these people were sending out both statements and also invoices. And at the right moment in time, that was very, very well planned, they logged in remotely into the Xero accounting system because it wasn't locked down properly, and changed all the bank details. And of course, all the statements and invoices started going out. And within 2 weeks, that business lost £1.4 million. And of course, the banks turned around and said, tough. You know, it was your systems that weren't secure. So I haven't checked recently, but they lost, I reckon they lost most of it, you know. Never mind the embarrassment, because all their clients and their suppliers started finding out that their business didn't secure themselves properly. And as a result, they lost not only money, but they lost clients as well.
So on that scenario, because we'll talk about internal controls, so I'm going to move away a bit from cyber, because I know in the finance world, we talk about controls. What we recommend to people, so when you get a letter through from change of bank details from someone like a supplier, we would always recommend that you phone the supplier up to confirm, because it happens all the time. I remember when I worked at British Sugar and I used to work in purchase ledger, and we used to do that role. I'd say in 1 year there was 5, at least every year there was about 5 letters that came in, but phoning the number on the letter doesn't help, because normally they've changed the number on the letter to be so we would always have to, so it's all about the data when you sign up the supplier, because you want to get the contact details and the email address on your system that you verify at the beginning, so that if you get this letter, you then phone them, so that then they can verify. And by doing that, we actually had people go, oh, no, we haven't changed our bank details. So that had obviously happened to some of these customers, suppliers to us, but we picked it up. So actually, as much as the individual company has a duty of care, I think every business has their own duty of care to do their own due diligence when they're getting like change of bank detail letters, because this has been going on for years. I mean, this happened, that was probably 15 years ago now, 16 years ago that was happening. So I can imagine it's even worse now. So.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it's going exponential. You know, every day you wake up, there's not a chance that you're not going to hear something either on your computer or on the news or on the radio or on LinkedIn or a tweet or something. And just going back one step, Judy, you said about reporting earlier. Do you know that only between 2 and 5% of all cybercrime right now are being reported?
Yeah. Blimey. And so you think people are being sort of conned out of money, but they're not reporting it, maybe through embarrassment, or do they know? Do they even know? They know eventually. When you lose money, eventually it's gonna pain. It's gonna hurt a bit, isn't it? They don't report it for 2 reasons. Number one, because it depends if they're regulated or not. They're scared of the ICO fines, okay, because GDPR breach, of course. Or 2, they're scared of their reputational damage, because, you know, we're seeing cases after cases that when people find out that you were responsible for losing their data, they don't want to do business with you anymore. And I mean, there are cases, I'm trying to remember, and I'm not just talking about big companies, I'm talking about small companies as well. They simply, you asked me about a case about the accountancy. I don't know if I told you this story. We had an accountancy referral a couple of weeks ago. So not only, this is the second time this guy got hacked, right? Second time. So not only did they get into his Dropbox account, his Xero account, all his email accounts, they started phoning his customers and saying, so by the way, we got your details from your accountant, and unless you pay us X amount of money, we're going to do the same to you. Oh my goodness.
Do you know what his IT company told him to do, Judy? His IT company told him, just wipe and reload your machines, you'll be fine. Do you know? And that's criminal. So not only did he lose so many customers, he was very badly advised until, of course, he came to us and we told him how to fix this problem permanently. But this is it's sad, because this stuff could have been prevented.
Yeah. So on that note then, if someone wants to see if they're at risk of cybercrime, do they have to sort of come to a company like you, or is there sort of their own due diligence they could do internally because as an example, I've got an IT firm and we think we're doing data security through them. I suppose as someone that doesn't know anything about IT and security, how would I know as a person to check whether I am secure? Is there a way I can check it, or?
There are many ways. There are for what size customer are you thinking about now? Because I'll give you different answers. I can either give you bottom, middle, top answers.
Well, I suppose if you take the accounting firm, which I suppose was that accounting firm a relatively small, medium-sized firm?
Yeah, there were only 10 staff.
Yeah, so that might be a similar size to me as an example. So if you use the accounting firm as an example, and my firm, that might be relatively similar size. As that sort of size firm, what's a practical step that someone could take to make sure?
The first one I'd like to recommend is and I'm sure you're going to ask me later, but our website is security-everywhere.com. If you go to our website, on the main page, you'll see we've created what we call a cyber health quiz. It takes 3 minutes to complete. It's 25 questions. It's free to do. And within 3 minutes, you will get an audit report that shows you not only the areas that you need to improve on immediately, but it'll also give you a lot of advice and links to resources on how to do it yourself. Now, of course, if you can't do it yourself, you come to somebody like me. But that's the quickest and easiest way you can find out within 3 minutes where your risks are when it comes to cybersecurity in a small or even larger business. So that's one way. The other way, which I always recommend to people, as I'm sitting on the security panel for the Eastern Cyber Resilience Center, is you go onto their website. If you just Google Eastern Cyber Resilience Center, you'll see, again, they've got so many different resources that you can use to do different but similar audits. Some of them are paid for. For instance, there's one on website auditing or insight auditing for, I think, about £400. Or if we jump up from there, we can actually work with a team of people where we can do penetration testing. We can try and get into your business externally. We can try and run an audit and again, a deep dive audit. We call them a penetration test from internally in your business. And those normally start at about $1,750 upwards, So really, it depends on what your risks are and how much you value your business, the way you start, with doing an audit on your systems. But I'm sure, like when you read a balance sheet or profit and loss, you can just spot the problem straight away without even thinking. And that's the same for us. And my view sometimes, again, depending on the size of the business, is why spend money on an audit and spending thousands of pounds on an audit where if we use the analogy of a car, you take your car to the garage, you get an MOT, right? Now you drive out of the garage and now you've just bumped a small pole and now your headlight or your reverse light is broken. So you're completely out of compliance. Would you agree? So that's the same as an audit. An audit just gives you a time slice of what the problem is. Rather invest that money, that's my advice for any business owner, to improving your cybersecurity instead of just telling you what the problem is. We know what the problems are because we've been doing it for so many years. We know what the key areas are, the quick wins to reduce your risk by 99+%. Does that give you an answer? I know it's a long one, as always.
No, it does. And I think that free check that you're talking about is a good starting place for smaller people as well, isn't it? So
yeah, they love it. It's instant. It's good. It's all based around 5 key areas within your business, and it originates. Originally, we took our years of learning plus the National Cybersecurity Center advice, and we made it better.
Wow. Yeah, so there's a couple of big examples there, and I'm sure there's hundreds more. So I suppose if we flip it round, because that's kind of looking, if you don't do cybersecurity checks, you're at risk of X, losing 1.4 mil, breaching ICO regulations. However, I suppose you've also got some positive stories. So if we think about it from an acquisition side, I know you mentioned to me about a recruitment firm that you actually improved the valuation from helping them set up good I suppose, security network. You might, that's what I would call it. I don't know the official word. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was a lovely case. I'm still waiting for my check, but anyway, I was only joking. But so a client that we've had now in London, about 60 odd staff, a great company, and we looked after them for years. And then within time, we improved all the security, and they were running all our core layers of services. And then one day he phones me up. He says, "Francis, I've got some bad news for you." I said, "What's that?" He says, "I'm leaving you." I said, "What do you mean? Jeez, you've been a good client." He says, "No, you won't believe it. I've just sold my business." He said, "But here comes the best part. When the company came in to do their due diligence on our business, they said they've never, ever found a business this secure and well, supported from an IT perspective. And as a result, we were able to get a higher multiple for our business."
Wow.
So, and I thought, brilliant. That to me is a good thing, because, it is our personal and company responsibility to look after the data that we hold. Data is the new gold, end of. And surely you should look after data better than you look after your money. And if you do, you can sell your business for more. There was another great stat that I read the other day, and I wish I could remember it, but it was a high percentage, that people say that, if somebody can prove that their data, for instance, is not for sale on the dark web or has ever been leaked, then immediately they can determine a higher multiple for their business. Again, it depends on the sector. And that makes sense to me. Why? Because if your business is based purely around data, in other words, customers, databases, trends, everything else, and I can steal that data, either obviously not in a legal way, then surely why should I buy your business? Because I've got your data already.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, doesn't it?
And that's why a lot of people, and we haven't spoken about the dark web yet, and the dark web, where you can buy child porn and AK-47s and any drug of choice and have it delivered to your house this afternoon. Surely it's important to know what's going on the dark web, so that if any of your data becomes for sale, you can take action. Because why? You're going to need to be able to answer that question the day you're sitting around a boardroom table and you're trying to sell your business.
Yeah. And I suppose if you think about it like that, they get a higher multiple. I suppose because we do a lot of acquisitions, I have to admit, cyber isn't something some people talk about a lot. But I suppose thinking about, if somebody can lose 1.4 mil, if you're buying a business that hasn't got good security, ultimately your risk is you could lose. You could be hacked at any one point in time. You could be unlucky and you could get hacked just after you bought the business. So
precisely.
So that's
good point.
So therefore, I think on the sell side, you can hopefully uplift the valuation. And the question is, on the buy side, are they actually thinking about security and cyber as a risk? Because obviously we can see from here it is a pretty big risk, and probably why with anything more going digital, it's becoming a bigger and bigger risk, isn't it? With more things being online and things like that as well.
Yeah. And I'm just looking at I keep record of the stats, so I attend a lot of, this was the, one of the events that I attended, or I was speaking at the other day. It was Essex Police. And one of the things that they shared there was 83% of small and to medium-sized businesses are not financially prepared to recover from a cyber attack. That's a big number.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you lose your money.
Well, it's not, for me, it's not just the money. I'll give you another example of that, okay? The other day, again, this was last year, beginning of last year, there's a lady, again, funny enough, another business. It wasn't an accountancy business. It was a architectural business, right? And this poor lady, she's been working in the business now for 30 years. I'm going to call her Mary. Now, Mary was responsible for clicking on a link and making a payment for £47,000, small business. Problem is, she took it so personally that she's been, when I last checked, this was last year, admittedly, I haven't checked recently, she's taken off work for over 6 months because she felt personally responsible for making that mistake.
Well, so she paid to the wrong bank details.
When I spoke to the owner, Yeah, because she made the mistake. She made the payment, okay? But because really it's brought the business, it lost all their cash flow. So the problem is, and when I spoke to the owner said, but it was Mary's mistake. And I said, I'm sorry, I disagree with you, John. This is why. I said, for two reasons. One, you never had any email security in place to prevent that email to get into her inbox in the first place, so she would have never made the payment. Two, you spoke about processes earlier, so important. You had no process in place to actually, for her, or training in place for her to go, hold on a second, this is the way I need to triple check it, make sure it's a big amount. How could she just make a payment of $47,000? I know she's been there for 30 years, but still.
Well, there's no one should be. No,
and then he completely changed his mind. But he was blaming her. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, poor culture. At the end of the day, this is, not people, and it goes to show even business leaders, people don't take enough accountability. Like in the end, I used to work in businesses and I used to see, senior directors standing in the hallway screaming at staff, blaming them for things. I'm like, in the end, lower level staff, it isn't their end accountability. It's always someone above. So as the business owner, it's their end responsibility to make sure they have the processes and controls in place that these things can't happen. Because as an example, these sorts of payment things are quite simple to fix. You have a control when you get a change of bank letters, like I said earlier, that you phone and check it.
Yeah.
That would remove the risk of anyone paying new bank details incorrectly because you'd be checking it. You have a sign-off DLA process of invoices and payments. So no one person should be able to pay £50,000 unless you're the owner and you've got full signability. But no lower level staff should have the ability to pay £50,000 with no second authorization for a second thing. And also, like you say, then the email security as well. And actually, if they probably had those three things in place, even probably just the sign-off process, even just one of those probably would have counteracted it.
Precisely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's two things, isn't there? There's the actual data security in terms of making sure you get the check and protect yourself as best you can. However, there's also the controls and processes internally, because if something slips through the net, things can go wrong and get corrupted. If something slips through the net, you can have secondary controls that stop it happening. And that usually comes through from segregations of duties on systems, making sure one person can't do multiple things.
Yeah. And Julie, just on that point, one thing that we haven't discussed, maybe we need to do that another time, is the supply chain. Because how many, and this is both supply chain in my head, is both the customers and the suppliers to a business. Yeah. Not just the suppliers.
Oh, yeah, because it's both.
Because the customers send info, and I'm thinking now about an accounting firm, for argument's sake. They send information, files over that are infected, right? Suppliers have access into your systems or using software that's not properly secured, and they send attacks into your business. So the $1 million question in my head is, when last did people with your top 5 or top 10 suppliers do an audit to actually determine what's their risk to their own business from the people that they do business with or that they buy from?
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And that includes, dare I say, your IT provider, because your IT provider's got full access. And people always say, my IT company's got it covered. And I'm like, great. I bet they are brilliant at fixing your PC, set up email accounts and everything else. But then I ask them 2 questions. That's number 1. If their security service gets it wrong, will they pay the ransom? No, of course not. And I'm going, why not? Surely they're that good, then they should be able to pay a ransom. Oh, number 2, and I'm going to defend the IT company in a minute. Number 2, when will they respond to an attack? 2:30 a.m. on a Saturday bank holiday, Monday, like we just had on the Easter bank holiday. Oh, maybe on a Tuesday morning. I said exactly. And this is why I think that IT support companies should purely be tasked to do IT support related work, like accountants do accountancy. You don't phone your accountant up and ask for legal advice, do you, on how to buy a house?
Well, some people do.
I'm sure they do.
We're expected to know everything.
Or give them No, true. But this is what they're doing with the other providers. And this is why I think the whole supply chain thing, from a logical point of view, from a security point of view, really, really needs some attention.
The fact is, as a business, you've got an ethical responsibility to your employees, your customers and your suppliers to make sure you're doing the right thing. Like someone, even in accountancy world, when it comes to sort of tax, sometimes real complicated tax areas, I think sometimes people feel pressurized to sort of always say they can do something because they don't want to show face to think they can't. So
Agreed.
and we see this in the accounting and tax world where they'll go, oh, my accountant can do this tax, and we're like, this is a specialized piece of tax work, some form of real specialized overseas VAT or complicated stuff, and I'm a bit like, I don't think a traditional accountant could do this. You might need a specialised accountant, but actually they phone their accountants and they might not want to say, because they're thinking, God, if I can't do this, I might lose the business. Well, the fact is we live in a world where I think we have to be willing to lose business to be ethical. You can't lie about what you can do, and maybe IT companies have a similar thing. Like maybe if they're, I don't know, I've never asked my IT company about cybersecurity actually. To be honest, I wouldn't have even thought about cybersecurity until I talked to you. But to be fair to them, they've never said to me, oh, we do cybersecurity. It's just like a knowledge piece, isn't it? Across the thing of and
on that point, Judy, I think I'm glad you even said it and you admitted it, because that's great, because most people don't. When you take your children or your husband or your partner for heart surgery, do you take them to the local GP or do you find a heart surgeon? And that's my message today for a lot of people. If you want to get properly protected, go to a specialist. I like myself or somebody else, doesn't matter. But get professional in health. Don't rely on the flu jab to fix COVID, because then you're going to have a real problem. Yeah. Because it's a question of when, not if.
Yeah, it's really interesting, actually. I think
I've stunned you now, Judy.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I think it's.
I've made you quiet now.
First time ever, Judy's quiet. Never speechless. Yeah. So. Oh God, the time just flies. I mean, this has been really interesting. I think this is. I think this is really interesting.
We haven't even started.
We haven't even touched on it. We're going to have to do.
We haven't.
We're going to have to do another episode. Yeah, we're going to have to do another episode.
I think we need to, and maybe what you could do is, there's so many areas. We can go into detail about why does normal computer security not work. And I'll tell you why quickly, because it can't detect unknown threats.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, it doesn't pay a ransom. Number three, it doesn't have a security operations center that comes with the computer security. So in other words, 2:30 in the morning, when you start sending files to China or to Russia or wherever, normal computer security will think that you're working late. And there's the problem. Then we need to talk about things like password security. Why is that so important? What about the dark web? We need to talk about email security. 94% of attacks coming by email. Why do you want to make your own staff member or even your children responsible for deciding whether this email is an attack on the business or personal life or not? Then talk about backup and recovery and about awareness training. That's just 5 key areas, which again is covered in the quick audit. But people need to really understand the risks, and they need to know one good thing. The positive news here is we can't control what's going on in the economy. Maybe some people can. We can't control what's going on in Russia. But the one thing we can control is our cybersecurity. Fact, we can fix that problem.
So I think we will have to have another session, because I think there's a lot we can dive into. But as we're coming to the end of this one, I mean, so if someone's buying a business and they need to do cyber due diligence, what do you think is the main thing they can ask the sellers or check to see whether they are compliant? Is there one top standard thing, or is it not that simple?
No, it's a very broad question. That's it. But I wonder if I can narrow it down for you to about maybe 5 or 10 questions. The first thing I would do, I would get them to go and do that security audit. The quiz that we've done. If they answer properly or honestly, you'll get a very quick answer. Number one. Number two, you can find out if they've got Cyber Essentials accreditation or Cyber Essentials Plus. accreditation. And I bet you, I don't know if you know, but out of 5 million businesses today, only 30,000 businesses have them, right? Because if they have either of those accreditations, then at least we know they've made a big, huge step towards getting their cybersecurity improved. If I was the buyer, then I would start looking at okay, I'm going to get a little technical now, but I want to see whether their email, which is, remember, the only gate that you cannot close in any business, or door, whether they've got the 3 key email security records set up, because most companies don't. And for me, that immediately throws red flags. Then you can run a proper audit on their internal systems and their external cloud systems. It doesn't need to be expensive, but that will kick out. Number 6, I would see what security services are these. Are they using password security? Are they using more than one password more than once? I mean, are any of the staff sharing passwords? So the simple basic stuff that people don't have in place. Do they have email security in place? Do they actually back up stuff? When last they recover their data from their backups, if they are backing stuff up? Because these are all business critical things that could bring a business down like this. And that could affect, the purchaser massively after they purchased the business. Because then it's too late. The guy has gone off in the sunset and now you're holding this little pup. Because remember what I said earlier? Data is worth more than money. And you need to treat it so. And as soon as you can determine in any business you buy that people are not treating their own data and their customers' data better than money, then I wouldn't pay the same. I'll pay less.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of people don't even think about it. I mean, we do loads of deals, probably about 3 to 5 every month. And I don't think I've ever once had anyone mention cyber or that sort of thing to me. So, yeah, I think this podcast hopefully will reach a lot of people and get them to start thinking, well, actually, maybe it's something I need to consider.
Well, we'll give them help with pleasure.
Yeah.
I'll save you the pain. Simple as that.
So
increase your value. That's it.
Yeah. So one last thing then before we leave. So obviously there's been a lot we've touched on cybersecurity and there's a lot you can help with. So if people do need help, where can they find you?
Yeah, gladly pick up the phone and give me a call. I'll be delighted to have a chat with you. Just mention that you heard this podcast, and then I know that was because of all the great work that Julie is doing on +44 203 195 0555. Or if you go to our website, which is security-everywhere.com. I'm also on LinkedIn under Francis West. And my email address is francis.w@security-everywhere.com. And you're going to laugh now, Julie, but I'm even on TikTok.
Me too.
I do TikTok videos. I do TikTok videos every week. And I did one on passwords the other day, and that's setting up almost 300,000 views, which is a lot for me. So we post every day on LinkedIn. Every first Thursday of the month between 11 and 12 a.m. or 12 p.m. We do a LinkedIn Live where I've got absolutely brilliant experts from around the country and the world talk about cybersecurity, and we answer any questions that people have. So if you Google me, you'll find me.
But if you need me on one of your lives, obviously not for cybersecurity, but for let me know.
But Julie, it's important because we normally have a mixture, two-thirds of obviously professional people and then 1/3 of non-professional people. Why? Because their input or their questions and their world experience, like yours within M&A and building business and buying businesses, is so important. So your views are you'll be very welcome to come and join us. I'd love to have you on.
Yeah. So, thanks so much for coming on. And I just want to thank our listeners for listening to the show. I really hope you're enjoying the episodes. If you enjoy it, click rate and review on Apple or subscribe on YouTube and share in your network so we can get more listeners to hear the show. So thank you, Francis.
Absolute pleasure. And again, thank you, Julie, because this helps me with my mission. Yes. To educate and protect at least 1 million businesses by 2026.
You're welcome.